Hi everyone, Dr. Crayhay here. In this Chapter 14 lecture video, I'll discuss the importance of replicability. So just to give you a brief overview, the overall kind of story of this section of the textbook is going to be that to be important, a study must be replicable. So it has to have the ability to be repeated. Preferably, it has already been repeated in one of a couple of ways we'll discuss in a moment. But the general idea is that, one research study, one psychology study that claims some link, some cause, some frequency, that's important. It adds to our knowledge base, it increases our understanding of human behavior. But we really need that to be repeated, we need it to be replicated, we need to add on to that before we have strong confidence in those findings. So that's the whole idea of this chapter. One study is good, but we really need multiple studies to have a lot of confidence about a research finding. So there are a couple of ways to go about establishing replicability. One is a direct replication study. You can do a replication and extension. You could do a meta-analysis study. And then, of course, we have to consider replicability in the popular press. So let's consider each of these in turn. There are a few different ways you could go about conducting a replication study. The first one here, a direct replication, you will exactly mirror the original study's methods to try to reproduce their results or their conclusions. So whatever their sample was, whatever their measurements, whatever their manipulations, you're going to take all of that and try to employ it in your lab at your university, wherever you happen to be doing your research, and try to get the same results. That is a direct replication. You could also do a conceptual replication. So here you're going for the same idea. So maybe the researchers found a link between chocolate consumption and mood. So you may not necessarily use the exact methods that the original study did. You're going to try new methods to investigate that same link. So you're going conceptually, but not necessarily using the same nitty-gritty details of the original study. You could do a replication plus extension. So here, you're going to do a direct replication study. So I think your textbook talks about the effects of using a hands-free cell phone on driving ability. The original study was with young adults, so maybe teenagers, early 20s. In a replication, you would do the same thing. So you want to see the effect of hands-free cell phone use on driving ability in teenagers and people in their early 20s. But you're also going to investigate older adults. So you're going to recruit an additional sample of people over the age of 50, maybe, and that is the extension piece. So then you could claim, I've found this effect again. So using a hands-free cell phone while driving impairs your ability to drive in young adults and in older adults. So you've got the replication piece plus the extension. Now a meta-analysis is basically a fancy way of saying that you're going to study all of the studies. So say you're interested in well, let's just stick with the same idea. So you're interested in hands-free cell phone use and the impact on driving ability. So what you're going to do is an extensive literature review, a literature search, right? So you'll go on to PsycInfo, maybe use Google Scholar. You're going to be emailing these researchers to talk to them about what they've found and get copies of those papers. You're going to input all of that data in, and you'll analyze the effect sizes from all of those studies. So you might end up with a database of 200 studies on this one topic. So you have 200 different correlations, and you're going to apply some fancy statistics there to get a sense of the overall correlation, the overall effect from this body of knowledge that we have. Meta-analysis is really emerging as the best replication. It really gives us a quick snapshot of an entire body of research, but it's not without its problems. First and foremost, having recently participated in a meta-analytic study, I can tell you these are very time consuming. Actually, the project I'm working on, we've been working on it for 4 years, and we are still collecting data. So we have hundreds of articles that we're trying to read. They're in different languages, so we're trying to get them transcribed, put into English, all of those kinds of things. They take up a lot of time, so they're very difficult, which means that a lot of researchers don't want to take them on. There's also something called a file drawer problem. So we've talked a little bit about how journals want to publish articles with statistically significant findings. So that's what you put out to the world, right? That is what is readily accessible when you're doing a meta-analysis. What you're missing are all of those studies that didn't work out because they were never published. Right? So the idea is, a researcher conducts a study, it doesn't quite work out, and then that paper ends up in their file drawer, maybe a file on their computer now that we're so digitally based. So a meta-analysis, I think, is the kind of golden standard, but it's very difficult to complete a meta-analysis study, and then you have to worry about the file drawer problem. So this figure is asking you, how meaningful is that effect size? So we've been talking about correlations for a while now, so maybe you have a correlation of 0.2, 0.5. What does that mean? Cohen gives us some guidelines for what's a small effect size, medium, large effect size, but in everyday practice, what does that really mean? How important is this? And so that's what this graph right here is giving us. So here you can see the effect size between smoking and lung cancer. That's a 0.4 effect size. So that's a pretty strong effect size. To me, that's pretty convincing evidence. I don't want lung cancer, so I'm not going to smoke. You have some smaller effect sizes here. That maybe you're less convinced by. So when you're looking at a meta-analysis, these are the kinds of things to consider. You always want to put these things in perspective. So that leads me to my final point of this lecture concerning journalists. So unfortunately, a lot of journalists will just skim through and look for a catchy title of published articles, and then they'll do a news piece on that. And they'll just give you this, the results from this one-shot study, and then they'll, get all of the website traffic. They'll get all of the viewers to watch their segment, those kinds of things. But what they really should be doing is giving you this research in context. So, okay, there's a link between video game violence and aggression. How large is that effect in this study? What can we compare that to? Is this important in our everyday life? Beyond that, how does this one study that you've looked at compare to the entire history of the study? Are you reporting results from a meta-analysis, or is this just one single study that has not been replicated yet? So be really careful when you hear about research studies in the media, because oftentimes they will just take one single study and they will try to sell it to you as if this is the end-all be-all. Well, you have to look at that in perspective. How does this effect size compare to other known effect sizes? How does it compare to the history of research in this field? Has it been replicated? How was it replicated? Are you looking at a meta-analysis? These are all of the kinds of questions you should be asking to determine if a study is important, if you should use results from that study to guide your own life.